Good afternoon. It is 12:06 p.m. and I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Portsmouth Arts and Nonprofits Committee. We are joined today by guests from the new Cultural Planning Subcommittee of this committee. And we've got a full agenda, but before we get started, I'd like to just take a moment. Oh, we got someone else popping up. Here's Stephanie. Stephanie to the room. Okay, so before we get started, I'd like to take a moment to recognize two committee members who have lost people that are very close to them in the past 2 weeks. Martha Fuller Clark, who is still a member of this committee, but we haven't seen her in a little bit in meetings because she's had personal time away from the committee, lost her husband, Jeffrey, the past month. And just this past week, committee member Courtney Perkins lost her sister. And so, I'd just like to take a moment to have a moment of silence for those two committee members and their loved ones who were lost this month. Thank you, everyone. And I want Courtney and Martha to know that they're in our thoughts, and though they can't be here today, we hope to see them soon. So thank you, everyone, for being here today. We have a few items on our agenda this afternoon. We're going to talk about the Americans for the Arts study, the AFTA study, Arts and Economic Prosperity. Is it 6, Robin? I think it's 6 at this point. Yeah. So we'll talk a little bit about that study. We also have members from the new cultural plan that was appointed by the State Council in December who are sitting in with us today. And we'll talk a little bit about the start of that process and expectations and how that's going to work. There are also members of this committee who will be sitting on that committee in addition to the 10 subcommittee members that were appointed by the council. We're also able to sit on that subcommittee if you're a member of this committee. So we have several members of this committee who will be participating in that committee. And then there's room, I believe, for some additions to the agenda. Stephanie, did I miss it? Go ahead, Stephanie. I see your hand raised.
Yeah, sorry. It's just that because I'm trying to do the minutes here remotely, could you quickly go around the table and tell me who's there in person?
Yeah, let's do that really quickly. So for the in-person people, we'll start with Sean and then we'll go around the microphones. Go ahead, Sean.
Sean Clancy, Economic Development, City of Portsmouth.
Renee Giffroy, New Hampshire Art Association.
Katie Cook, City Council.
Larry Urick, Strawberry Bank, New City.
Genevieve Angel, New Hampshire Theater Project.
And Jason Goodrich, Seacoast Repertory Theater.
And Russ Grazier, Portsmouth Music and Arts Center. And then let's start with Beth online so we have everyone who's in the room to get to know people.
Beth Faulkner, 3S Art Space.
Robin.
Robin Albert, community member.
Jerry Ann. Oh, you're on mute, Jerry Ann. I apologize.
Me. Jerry Ann Bogus, Black Heritage Trail.
Great. Barbara.
Barbara Massar, Pro Portsmouth.
And Ben.
Ben Van Camp with the Chamber Collaborative.
Great. And we have some other people online, Stephanie, who are with the subcommittee. And I think we'll save introducing all the subcommittee members till we get to that portion of the meeting. Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So first up, we have an update on the AFTA study. Did we have minutes that we're supposed to be approving, Stephanie, from the last meeting? I think that might have been on the agenda, but I can't remember.
Probably. It's been a while.
Yeah, you know what I'm going to say? Knowing that it's been a while, I'd like to approve the, I believe October was the last meeting, October minutes, along with the January minutes at our February meeting, just because we got started a little late today. So we'll hold off the minutes approval till the next meeting. So let's move on to the American for the Arts study, Robin.
Renee, if it's okay, I've got my notes and I'll take it. As of January 4th, we had 719 surveys turned in, which is really great. However, we also were hoping for more than 800. 800 is the absolute minimum. So between now and April 30th, we still need to be surveying because it's not going to automatically even get to the 100. So please make a note. And I know that Lauren Rosen around the holiday time emailed everybody, but we'll do an e-blast to the nonprofits again. Today, I want to talk about a visit that we've had in the past by Randy Cohen, the Vice President of Research for Americans for the Arts. We have already paid his speaker fee, which is $1,950, which gives us his time for 24 hours or a little bit more. What I want to share is what we did last time when he came, and ask you for your ideas of what you think we might be asking of him. So he will come with all of the data and all of the research, and his tour starts October 23rd. So we have to pick what we want him to do, partners that we'd have to connect with to do that, and what date we might be looking at. So I just want to share that last time he came, there was a chamber breakfast at the Sheraton that was well attended and also included a panel of one nonprofit and then a business that supports them. And they talked about why that was mutually beneficial as examples. He spoke to Rotary. He spoke to the editorial board of the Herald, which I don't even know if that exists. And then he did a final workshop for the nonprofits themselves on how to best use the data. Part of the money we've paid to be a participant will get us a 30-page report just from Greater Portsmouth, a 2-page summary of Greater Portsmouth, a flyer for Greater Portsmouth, a PowerPoint that we can edit, and then we'll get national reports that go much, much deeper. And also, sample press releases and stuff like that. So my question to you guys is, if we are paying for him to come, and by the way, we have to also, over and above, find a way to pay for airfare, lodging, meals, and potential car rental, but we can get to that in the fall. So what I want to ask is, if we've got him for 24 hours and he's the one with all the data, what do you see him doing? How can we best use his time? I can't hear anybody.
That's because nobody was talking.
It's because I was muted. Ellen Feinberg is here from the subcommittee, so I'm going to ask her to sit at the table so she can have access to the microphone because she has some suggestions on this.
Robin, are we the only community in New Hampshire that is participating in this study?
That is a good point, and I don't remember, but I can certainly look that up.
I can tell you we are not. There are at least 2 other communities I know through my work with the New Hampshire State Council of the Arts, if not 3 other communities doing this. Yeah.
Any in this area though?
They're more in the western part of the state or Concord area, I think.
Okay.
Go ahead, Robin.
No, I was just going to ask Ben if he had any idea of how he might want to incorporate this in some kind of a chamber presentation.
Well, I think that the offer is there from the chamber to co-host any sort of educational event that you'd like. I thought it was that last time. I thought we did it at 3S, but I could be wrong. But we'd be happy to put together, a breakfast thing that keeps the rest of the day available for him to do other presentations or work with the nonprofits directly. So that sort of gets that out of the way, and breakfast events work well for us. So that offer stands, and we'd be happy to partner with the committee on that.
Okay, so others?
Barbara, go ahead.
Yeah, Robin, I mean, if it's not broken, don't fix it, right? I remember it was like a 1, 2, 3 kind of thing that he did. And I remember going to his presentation. I thought it was at Strawberry Bank.
Yes, he did the nonprofit event at Strawberry Bank. It was actually the next morning.
Yeah, I thought it was really good. He did the presentation. We got to talk and mill around and see one another. I thought that was really important. I didn't go to the breakfast because I knew I was going to go to the other thing. And then if we can get the Rotary to jump in, the lunch Rotary group, and have him present to that, then he really gets the business community, right?
Well, that and the chamber, but sometimes those are 2 different
Exactly.
in the city.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask this committee if anybody is a member of the bigger Portsmouth Rotary, the lunchtime one? Figures.
And Karen is as well.
Yes, Karen is as well.
So unfortunately, well, the problem is we have him for October 23rd and Rotary meets on Thursday.
No, he just starts on the 23rd of October, his whole national tour. We have to request a date. So obviously we have to find a date when there's an opening at Rotary, and we can also do the breakfast and find a venue for that.
Right.
And I do believe last time, Ben, I don't think you were still I don't think you were at the chamber. I think there was, like other breakfasts for the chamber, I think there was a charge for that. People are kind of used to that, and the attendance was still fine. But which Karen is a member of Rotary?
Our state manager, Karen Kennard.
Oh, that Karen. Okay. So there's another Karen listening in. Russ, can we leave it to you to look at some fall dates?
Yeah, I can do that.
That Rotary might be free, and then we can come back to Ben, because that's going to be the marker of when we can
actually work on it with Ben. I think Ben and I together can take a look at some dates for the chamber and match them up with dates for the Rotary Club. But I think what we're talking about, and this is something that Randy is really good at, is identifying what different audiences we want him to present this on, because he has a different presentation for the arts organizations than he does for the general public. And he even tweaks it a little bit if he knows he's talking to business leaders in the community, as opposed to just open anyone who comes through the door from the community. So, I think that you're going to want to model it and say, all right, we're going to have a community-wide event at some place. I think that's similar to what was done at 3S Art Space last time. Have a nonprofit organization leadership meeting that's kind of targeted to how this information can be used by local nonprofits. And then business organization one. Ben and I will talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to have Beth speak. But we'll figure out if doing Rotary and chamber this time around might be redundant or not. We'll take a close look at that. Things have definitely changed with the Portsmouth Rotary Club as a result of COVID and the pandemic, and they attend meetings a little differently than they have in the past. But I'm happy to talk to them about it, because they're always looking for great guest speakers. It's really a good message to get out. Beth, you had a comment.
Yeah, hi. I just, I wondered if there was also a way of getting more specifically in front of a philanthropic audience, and wondered, it could just be that we do more targeted invitations for them to come to the community event, but ensuring that the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation, Piscataqua region folks are there in the room. And I would really love the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation to sort of get a very strong ask to come and hear this.
I don't. Okay.
Yeah, I'd like to have Seacoast Rep would be very interested in hosting at least one of those events. So I'd like to talk with you about that. Go ahead, Robin.
No, I was going to ask, I don't remember where the community event was, and remembering that it's the document, the contract says he has 24 hours, but obviously he must have stayed a little longer, because you can't do what we're all asking in 24 hours. Do you remember where the community event was last time?
I think it was at 3S.
Yeah, I think it was at 3S last time. They blend together for me. I know it only happens every 5 years, but there was one year that was at the Discover Portsmouth Center. Yeah. It's been at different places over the years.
Right.
Yes.
I believe the breakfast community event was at 3S. I think I was pretty new here, so that's pretty fresh in my mind that was one of my first events.
Okay.
Jen has a comment.
Oh, I was just going to say, the New Hampshire State Council on the Arts has been working very hard to get the New Hampshire Division of Tourism to include the arts. And I think I'm not been a person who's been really active with that, but it would be great to get them at least one of these events too.
Yeah, I agree. Go ahead, Ellen.
So the reason I asked about whether there were other communities participating in the study is to see whether there's an opportunity for a statewide presentation where all of the organizations in the state present to the legislature, the funding organizations, so that the combined impact of the arts would be seen, and the impact in New Hampshire, and get a different, see if we can get some statewide publications also to publish that data collectively.
I think that's an excellent point. Thanks, Ellen. Barbara, go ahead.
This Wednesday is actually Ginny Lupe's meeting for the State Arts Council. So I was planning to attend. If somebody else is going to attend, maybe that's something we broach with that group as early as this Wednesday.
Yeah, those are the performing arts and presenting meeting. I do the Tuesday public-private partnership meeting with her, and I can talk to her about it as well. But I think that there's a good point there that Ellen has about maybe finding out now who all the other communities are, maybe finding a way to coordinate. I mean, it would make it easier for Randy if he went around the state on a little tour all at once, and then we culminated, or at some point during this day, did something in Concord that brought together different parts of the state. Oh, and Beth just shared with the communities participating, so that's very helpful. Someone had their hand raised. Ben, go ahead.
Well, now that we have this list, I'd be happy to work with the other chambers around the state that are in participating communities, and perhaps in partnership with the Arts Council, work on a plan to bring some statewide attention to this. We've been doing a lot more work statewide as chambers, and I think this is a good task for us to assist with.
And as a committee, obviously, we're not going to be getting the data until the fall. We're pretty sure that the numbers are going to be really different than the last time. And we have to make that positive, not negative. I mean, we all have to be on the same boat about that. But, the fact that this is where we were, and because of COVID, this is where we are now. And that's why it's even more important to build and maintain these partnerships with the industries that are really benefiting from us, which is everybody but us, if you know what I mean. It's like we're not getting, we the nonprofits are not getting much in that pie of where this money goes. And so I just want to make sure I understand what Ellen meant. So Ellen, you were just talking about somehow bringing a statewide people to our event, or were you thinking about another event? Again, remembering he's only here for 24 hours, but might be in another community.
We might not be able to include Randy in the event, but what if all the different communities there was some sort of state panel that some organization, and we got the press there. I don't know all the parameters, but it was just, if we're not the only entity, how can we promote the arts on a statewide basis as well as a community by community basis?
So that's great. So
Rob,
I guess, go ahead, Renee. Yeah.
Yeah, this is Renee. What I'm thinking is, does he have 24 hours just for the Portsmouth study? Because if he has it for every study, then he basically, and there's 4 others, then we've got, a week of him that we could use. I don't know if we partnered with the other arts, the other communities that are participating in this. You know what I'm saying?
I think, are you saying that every day he could go to those specific communities, and then there could be a day when there's a statewide presentation to the legislature or whoever?
That's what I was thinking, if we coordinate. I don't know. I don't know the answer.
We don't know.
If I may interject, why don't we do this? If Ben and Russ are going to work on a date, and Ben knows the other chambers, why don't we take this offline and have them work on, is there a week he could be in New Hampshire? And then part of that could be Concord. So instead of trying to figure out where he's going to be every day that we can connect the dots in New Hampshire, maybe we can work with the other cities or communities and get him to be in New Hampshire for multiple days. Make sense?
Yes.
It does, Barbara. To me, to me, of course, we're the most important, and we have to look at the best date for us and then see how others can meld into that. And you know, his bookings are coming fast and furiously. So there are other communities who have already just set a date, even though they don't know what they're doing. But Ben, I think to wrap up, if you and Russ determine, are we only going to do chamber, or are we going to do chamber and Rotary, then we need to look at a date from the Rotary.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So Renee, was there anything else?
No, that was just, no, that's it, thanks.
Okay, yeah, and again, just a reminder to please do surveys, and we'll send an email out to say we're not finished with surveys. And interestingly enough, just one other thing, 162 were paper and 552 were electronic.
Yeah.
So that's great. Thank you so much, everyone.
Before we close the door on this, well, first I'll ask if anyone else in the room anyone that may have any questions for Robin. All right, seeing none, I just wanted to ask if there's an update on the timing for the organization surveys, because I haven't seen something come across my desk yet, and I want to make sure that we give the organizations enough time to do what they need to do.
Right, and Renee, I think I'm correct. We're supposed to receive something in February, and it's supposed to be a much simpler model than it ever was before.
Right. So, that's what they've told us, but apparently they're still working on it to make it simple.
Yeah. Sometimes it's a very complex procedure to make it simple.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you. The next thing we have on the agenda is our cultural plan subcommittee. So I'm just going to speak for a minute, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and we have enough chairs. Why don't you all come up and join us at the table here, because we're going to need to find a seat at the table and join us. And then we have at least one person joining us online, maybe more. It depends on cameras, I think.
There are 2 online, Russ.
2 online, okay. So welcome to this group. The committee that you're sitting in on today is the Portsmouth Arts and Nonprofits Committee. It is an outgrowth of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on Arts and Nonprofits that was formed in January of 2021, which was an outgrowth of the Mayor's Blue Ribbon Committee on COVID recovery. I'm not sure the exact name of that committee, although I was on it many moons ago. But we started with a pandemic recovery in the late spring, early summer of 2020, and a group of about 20 to 25 local community members got together on this committee to work with the city to identify ways that the city could assist in COVID recovery for our community. And part of that was arts and culture recovery, because as probably everyone in this room is aware, arts and culture businesses and organizations in many ways were disproportionately impacted by COVID due to the nature of the way their businesses operate. Many of the businesses rely on mass gathering of people, such as theaters or concert halls or museums, or any type of cultural or historic activity in our community. Really often relies on groups of people coming together, being in person with each other. After serving on that committee, the mayor approached me, the former mayor approached me and Barbara, and asked us what we thought about having a committee specifically to arts, and he meant arts nonprofits. There's a little confusion. That's called the Portsmouth Arts and Nonprofits Committee, but really it was to address the needs of arts nonprofits and to a certain degree cultural nonprofits as well within our community. We felt that it was just too limiting to just say arts nonprofits. So arts and culture nonprofits in Portsmouth, and how the city could work with us to help these groups navigate their way out of the situation that we found ourselves in with the pandemic. So we began our work in January of 2021, and basically that was the Blue Ribbon Committee in January 2021. And then December of 2021, we made a report to the City Council, and we offered to become an official committee for 2 years, which means we would go through December of 2023. This calendar year was what we had committed to the city council. We thought it made sense to align our tenure with the current city council and see what we could accomplish during this timeline. We also felt it was a reasonable timeline for expectations of economic recovery related to COVID, although we're all aware that it's going to take much longer than that timeline, but what we could do working with the city. And we laid out some ideas of what we wanted to do over those 2 years. And one of the ideas was to address the fact that Portsmouth has a cultural plan that's 20 years old at this point. And it was a very important document that Mayor Evelyn Sorrell commissioned the Blue Ribbon Committee to create back in 2000, 2001. And I think it was eventually published in 2002. And a lot of wonderful things came out of that cultural plan, and many aspects of that cultural plan were adopted into the city's master plan at that point. And while there has been discussion over the years of renewing the cultural plan and having a new or revised cultural plan for the committee, there hasn't been a second one since the initial document in 2002. So the Portsmouth Arts and Nonprofits Committee decided to propose that we help lead the effort to revise and create a new cultural plan for the community, with the idea of doing the bulk of the work in 2023. And with a hope, and this may be unrealistic, and I think that the subcommittee that we've invited to take on the bulk of this work will have to advise the Arts and Nonprofits Committee on what they feel if it's realistic or not, but with the hope of having this accepted by this currently sitting city council before the new city council is seated in January of 2024, which basically gives us this year to create a cultural plan and to present it to the city council and hopefully get it approved by the city council and then eventually adopted into the new master plan for the city. So this is one of several tasks that this committee has taken on. And we knew that it was a significant task, hopefully not an unbearable amount of work, but definitely something that deserved a devoted group of people to look at this and figure it out. So we put out a call for people in the community who would be interested in helping create the new cultural plan. And these would be a group of people that would be on what we would call a cultural plan subcommittee of the Arts and Nonprofits Committee. And they would be joined on that committee by some members of the Arts and Nonprofit Committee. So it's not just the 10 people who are currently appointed and 3 alternates. They're currently appointed by the mayor to be on this committee, but also a few members from this group as well. So Barbara and I worked together to identify a schedule, and we figured that group meetings once a month, and we've been doing our meetings on Mondays at noon, so we kind of coordinated with that and chose a different Monday of the month at noon time and have a subcommittee meet and kick off in early February, the first Monday in February, and start to work through the process of developing a new cultural plan. So I will in a minute take a moment to go through the room and have everyone introduce themselves. I do understand, I don't believe everyone was able to make it here today for this meeting. Barbara, if you have handy the list, because I don't have it right in front of me, of everyone who's on the committee or alternates.
I do. Right,
as we go through the room, check people off, and then at the end, I may ask you to just list the names of the people who are unable to attend today so that we have on the record all of the subcommittee members in the minutes for today. But before we go through and do that, I do want to thank everyone who put their names forward. We weren't able to put everyone who wanted to be on the committee. We wanted it to be a manageable size group, not too small a group that would put the weight of the work on too few people, but I think we only took about half of the people that had actually applied to be on the committee. And what we did was we tried to find people from different backgrounds, different perspectives, and to put together a variety of people that could really help us achieve this goal. And go ahead, Barbara.
Russ, just one more thing before people introduce themselves. So I know everybody, it sounds like it's kind of daunting. Oh my God, he wants us to do this in 10 months. But the good news is we're not starting from zero. We have a plan to consider from 20 years ago. So we have the template, if you will. And the other thing that's really important, that was important to us when Russ and I presented to the council, is that a lot of people started to look at this committee like we were the arts commission for the city, and that is not true. We are a committee that was appointed to do something very specific. So the other thing that you're going to be looking at when you look at where we were 20 years ago, where we are now, is also one of the big things that came out of that plan, which was called Art Speak. And that was the city's arts commission. Now, this committee most likely will go away at the end of this year because hopefully we will have done our work that we committed to, which was the last piece being the cultural plan. If that is the case, you may very well recommend that another commission forms, which would do a lot of the work that we've been doing, but in a more official capacity as appointed by the city. So I just wanted to put that out there because you start to look at things and think, we only have a year. Well, you do, but we have a lot of things in place for you to consider as a foundation that the group didn't 20 years ago. They were starting from zero. So I just wanted to mention that because those are some really important things as this group starts that they'll be looking at.
Thank you, Barbara. I think that's really important. I appreciate you saying that. And one of the things that I'm really happy about, among many things, is that we have a subcommittee member who participated in the process 20 years ago when we did the first cultural plan, and also is a past chair of the Art Speak board, which is why she was called upon so many times during this meeting to make questions about the Americans for the Arts study, because she has a lot of experience with that. So I'm going to start with Ellen and have her introduce herself, and then we'll work our way around with this committee members this way around the room. And what I'd like each of you to do is just let us know who you are, very briefly, a little bit about your background and why you applied to be on this committee, just so we can get to know every person on the committee. We are in the last 20 minutes of our meeting, so we have to keep it a little tight. So I just ask that you do that. But go ahead, Ellen.
Ellen Feinberg. I've lived in Portsmouth for almost 40 years now. And as Russ said, I was a member of a group that created the cultural plan for the community. My background is that I worked in nonprofits, mostly arts and cultural related nonprofits for my career. I'm retired now, but I'm a very active community member. And I'm very excited about the opportunity of rethinking the cultural plan and what we did 20 years ago and what's different now and where we should be in the next, let's hope, cultural plan gets renewed in 10 years rather than 20.
Yeah, that would be very cool. Yeah. Thank you all. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. Thank you, Russ. My name's John Mayer. I am unaffiliated. At this point, I just retired from a career working in history museums. I've lived in Portsmouth for 25 years, was a member of the HDC for 2. We live in a 200-year-old house on Cabot Street. As a recently retired person, I want to think through a lens of a community member and look to find ways to advocate for the arts from a grassroots level. I am looking forward to learning more about our job, but I'd like to shine a light on ways to help Portsmouth thrive and give more opportunity for visual artists and people who have a really hard time finding places to live in our town. So thrilled to be here. Thank you. Thanks.
Pull the microphone a little closer to you so you go ahead.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. Back there, Alan Chase, recent community member, retired Navy officer, Cape Cod native. And I guess why I wanted to be a part of this organization was I did about 24 years Navy all over the place. 19 of those were overseas. And one of the things that I always found helpful and rewarding is to get involved. So did the same here. Hopefully, a lot of the arts background that I've seen, both growing up and across the world, and the project management experience that comes with the job, will be a help to you all. So looking forward to planning. Thanks, Al. Good to meet you. Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah, I'm Jeffrey Cooper. I've been in Portsmouth about 40 years. I'm a local furniture maker. I've been involved with Portsmouth Listens for a number of years, which seems to have gone away, unfortunately. But that gave me a lot of consideration for input type processes. What motivated me to raise my hand on this is that as I'm looking at Portsmouth, so much of the focus is on the performing arts, that I thought there'd be good representation for people who make stuff. And, you know, I think in relation to that, the public art kind of things, I go around other cities and see all kinds of public art. And I'm saying there's such a strong community here in Portsmouth with people who make stuff. Why isn't public art all over the city? So that's kind of what got me to stick my neck out.
Yes. Not sure where the camera is. I think you want to speak into the microphone regardless of the camera. Sorry. Is that over here? Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, well, I'm Gerard Gonzalez. I live in Portsmouth. I've been here since June of 2018. It's my second go around in Portsmouth. I lived here back in 1988, 89. Love the community. I transferred here from San Antonio, Texas. I run a division for a Boston-based consulting company out of Peace, Tradeport. And my interest is in, I have a background with servant leadership back in my days at St. Paul, Minnesota, where I spent about 16 years working with city councils and whatnot. I'm very interested in the community and you know, doing what I can to contribute. I've lived in many places, and I originate from Havana, Cuba. I came over to age 5. So,
well, thank you for joining up. Yes.
Karen Balance, moved up to Portsmouth, migrated from Newburyport about 3 years ago, although my husband grew up here. And
Excuse me, so sorry, but those of us that are on Zoom didn't hear anything.
Oh,
of me or anything of anybody.
You need to get really close to the mic.
Okay.
Speak loudly.
Yeah.
I'm not used to doing that, so okay. My name is Karen Battles. I moved up from Newburyport, Mass. About 3 years ago. My husband James grew up in this community, so we're very happy to be here. It's a wonderful community. I'm a mixed media artist, although I ran a creative graphic arts printing company, self-employed for about 20 years. And I'm just really very interested to learn more about the arts community up here, to help in any way to review this plan. I think it's a fascinating process, and I look forward to helping.
Thank you. Online, we have Karen. Go ahead, Karen.
Hello, everybody. My name is Karen Rosania. I'm new. I'm new to Portsmouth. I just moved here with my husband last year. I just started up my own art studio in Portsmouth, which is also new. I'm a multidisciplinarian artist. And my passion for being on this community is we've been coming up to Portsmouth for over 20 years now. And just every time we got back in the car, we just found something more to love about it. So God willing, I plan on being here for many decades, and just an opportunity to really help shape the culture in the city. And I'm thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And I think the last person we have on the call is Tom. Are you able to unmute Tom?
I was going to start my video too, if I could.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Oops. I have a little tap on my video. My name is Tom Koffold. I was the founder of the Seacoast LGBTQ History Project. I've been a resident of Portsmouth coming up on 30 years, so I'm still considered a newbie. I have a couple interests in the group. One was to make sure all of our stories and histories and all the cultural things that different groups have brought to the city are represented and are, you know, covered in this committee and future committees. And also just kind of working with a lot of the historical groups in town, just worried about not being able to have enough space to store all the wonderful artifacts that we have in the city that's part of our culture and part of our history that we really need to kind of be aware of. So those are kind of 2 points that I'm really interested in.
All right, thank you, Tom.
Yep.
Barbara, can you read the list of, I believe there's 2 more committee members who were unable to be present, and then the 3 alternates?
Well, committee members that I don't think were here are Amanda Kidd Kessler, Robin Lori Meyerkoff, Emma Stratton.
Yes, so Amanda Kidd Kessler is the new executive director of the New Hampshire Art Association. Correct. And who was the second one you mentioned there? I apologize, Barbara.
Robin Lori Meyerkoff.
Robin Lori Meyerkoff is a past member of the Artspeak Board of Directors and a local business owner, and has been involved with the Historic Society. And then the third one was Emma Stratton, right?
Yes.
And she's the new executive director of Portsmouth Historic Society. So we've got some nice representation there. And then there are 3 alternates, Barbara.
Right. 2 of the alternates that are not present are Suzanne Danforth and Ed Simeon.
And there's an alternate present here today? You're an alternate. All right.
That's correct.
All right, excellent. All right. So, you know, the purpose of inviting you to be at the meeting today, one was for us to get to meet you and for you to get to meet us, because we meet typically on the 3rd Monday of the month. All of our meetings are recorded and posted on the city YouTube site. I do not encourage anyone to go back and watch any of the past ones unless you feel really like you want to do that. But you can become familiar with any of our work that way. Barbara, who's on the Zoom call, and myself are co-chairing this this committee, the Arts and Nonprofits Committee, and you can reach out to either one of us at any time with any questions that you have. Barbara had sent the initial email inviting you to today, and I'm copied on that, so you should have my email address as well. And we still have a little bit of finessing that we have to do to set up that first meeting, which is scheduled, I believe, February 6th. Is that correct? But I did get news from the city, Barbara, that was passed on to me from Councilor Cook today, that for the subcommittee, because it's a subcommittee, there will not be a requirement of posting videos of every single meeting. We will just have to submit minutes for each meeting. What that does is it gives us some flexibility in meeting location. Meaning that one of the ideas that Barbara and I had tossed about was the idea of, on some meetings, having meetings in actual different locations, maybe at Music Hall, maybe at Strawberry Bank, maybe at the Discover Portsmouth Center, or other various locations throughout the community, so that there's an opportunity for the subcommittee to connect with our arts and culture organizations. With, let's say, I mean, we find space at the Button Factory one month to have a meeting. We can utilize different spaces. And we don't have to worry unless there's a specific reason why committee members really want the accessibility of being able to log in via Zoom. So we'll talk about that as we go forward as well. But you know, we'll figure out all of this as we go along. Barbara, what am I forgetting?
I think that was about it, but kind of a couple of housekeeping items. One is that you will all notice that I did not post your emails publicly. You were all blind copied, and I did that for a very specific reason. I never assume that people want their emails out in the world. So to that end, though, now that a number of you responded to me, I will assume that also means I can send your email out, and your fellow committee members will now be able to see your emails. That's one. And the second one is I'm thinking that you're not all as shy as you seem to be in your email, and that some of you may be interested in leadership positions. I hope we didn't scare anybody. Believe me, it's And I will tell you, I think Russ will agree that being co-chairs has been really important, because if one can't be there, the other one does it, or you just share different talents or strengths, whatever the case may be. But all that said, if you haven't responded to me regarding that point, please think about it and let me know if you are interested in a leadership position. You don't have to copy all. And then Russ and I will discuss that and introduce that at your first meeting. So that's important too, that the subcommittee has its own leadership and also has a secretary to take notes. I was going to
mention that. Someone to take notes is going to be critical in this group. So if there's someone in the subcommittee who feels particularly drawn to that role, that would be super helpful. Were you going to say something, Councilor Cook?
Yes. And one final thing. I know that people are notorious at not responding. They think we know they're going to be in a place or not be in a place. Please do this for me and for us. If you're asked a question and asked to respond, please do, so we know how to account for people and who's going to be there and who's not going to be there, so we know how to proceed with meetings. That would be super helpful. Thanks.
I was just going to note that it's important to remember that this is a publicly appointed subcommittee on a committee for the city. So therefore, subject to all the rules on open meetings, meetings posted, and that's why we have to make sure we have minutes because they have to be accessible to the public.
Yeah. So thank you for stepping up to do this. Go ahead, Jeff.
Well, Jeffrey. I'm unclear what the role of the alternates is, because I don't know the term is like in a jury, they fill in if somebody drops out. And I would like to, can you send us the 2001 study in advance of the February 6th meeting?
All right, 2 questions. I'll answer the second one first really quickly. Yes, we have a digital version of that we can circulate to everyone right away. So we'll get that out to you today. And then the alternates, basically what we were thinking was to keep the committee size at 10 community members who are not serving on the Arts and Nonprofits Committee, so that we would have a broad base of individuals who aren't on the Arts and Nonprofits Committee, and understanding that things change over time. We wanted to invite 3 additional people to participate with everything except for voting power. And then if there is a need for someone to step away, we don't have to go out hunting for someone and re-educate someone to step into that role. So the 3 alternates are expected to come and participate in all meetings, be actively involved in the meetings. If anything that requires a vote of the subcommittee, they are not voting members. But they're present, observing, contributing, participating. And then if one of the 10 members steps off, then one of those are asked to step in and fill that role. Does that clarify that? Yes. Okay. Yeah, we thought this was really important. And in my experience on these various committees over the past 3 years, there are a lot of things that are happening in the world right now that can pull someone away from a committee at short notice. So making sure that we built in a system to deal with that was important, Barbara and I. So thank you all for stepping up and doing this. We all very much appreciate it. Having done this for a few years now, everyone on this committee is very empathetic and sympathetic to what the commitment that you're making and the regular meetings. And I know that I will be at the Cultural Planning Subcommittee meetings, as will Barbara, and several of the other committee members are going to be a part of that as well. And we'll get things kicked off on February 6th. What we're looking to get out of the February 6th meeting is leadership, including taking minutes, and a framework for the process over the course of the year, because we're going to need a lot of community input. This is not the idea of 10 people within the community. So this is going to be 10 people in the community getting broad-based wide community input through surveys, through listening sessions, through work sessions, things like that throughout the course of the year. Figuring out, and the other thing that we're going to need to do in that first meeting, and I'm hoping, Sean, you might be able to be there for that February 6th meeting, is start to talk about the resources that we're going to be able to access outside of this committee and the subcommittee help accomplish this. Meaning we're talking about bringing in some type of consulting structure, consultant or a group to come in and work with us to actually get this done on this timeline. So we would likely be working with a consultant or a consultant team to achieve this. And we'll talk a little bit at February 6th about exactly what we're looking for. Consulting, the Arts and Nonprofit Committee members have talked about this a bit. So we have some ideas on that. And of course, we've talked with the city, both with Councilor Cook and Sean, who's with the city to make sure that we understand what we're doing. And City Manager Kennard is on board with this. So we've got most of that figured out, except putting out the RFP. Any questions?
Just a comment. Yeah. Obviously, you talked about distributing the digital version of the cultural plan in preparation for that meeting. I think that's fantastic. What would be really interesting as well for anybody who served on that initial group, identifying and being able to discuss what were the major inputs, where did they come from, just so that as we formulate, mentioned as a goal coming up with our plan, I think understanding what those inputs were and not having to kind of recreate some of those as well would be really helpful.
I think Ellen has some institutional history on that, and the actual plan has actually a list of the listening groups and all the, there's probably a list of 60, 70 people in the cultural plan, people who participated in one capacity or another listening groups. So a lot of those people are still around and might be called upon again. And there are a lot of people who weren't called upon last time that will be called upon this time. But I think that's a great plan.
Hey, Russ.
Yes, go ahead.
Being one of those people still around.
Yes.
Can you send us, this committee, electronic version of that as well?
Yeah, I'll send it there. Yeah, go ahead, John.
I'm curious if there's an example that this committee would point to that of an arts plan that's a model that would be inspiring, that might profile, spotlight an approach for our job. I totally agree. It's great having Ellen and people who were part of the 2001 process. But I'm wondering, what the contemporary, vision is for a plan like this.
So I can reach out to Lisa Burke McCoy at the New Hampshire State Council of the Arts. There are several communities in New Hampshire who, since the Portsmouth one was published in 2002, have accomplished this process and done their own cultural plans. So we can see what exists in New Hampshire and hopefully beyond in other states and other communities. I would encourage anyone who's sitting on the subcommittee to assist by, if you're able to do a little web hunting and see if we can come up with something that maybe we don't find. I think we can do that together. But there is a group that's meeting semi-regularly now that Lisa Burke McCoy is heading up, of people who are going through this process, not just Portsmouth, or who have gone through the process. So I can talk to her and see what we can get. Thank you, John. Any other questions?
Randy Cohn and his organization should.
Randy should have some.
Yeah, I think that they, if you go to their site, and probably.
Randy's with Americans for the Arts, Washington, D.C. He's the one who's going to be coming this fall.
And it's hardly, he was very involved.
Yes.
Thinking about this. So.
Yes, sir. All right, it's 12:59. Oh, 1 o'clock. Just 1 o'clock. We're done. Meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for being here today.
Ross, thank you.
Yeah, Russ.